When I matched with Shelby, I thought I'd found someone truly special. We met on a Bumby dating app, just your typical swipe right kind of place. Nothing about her profile screamed bug lover, which was a relief. See, I've always had a deep, gut-level fear of insects. Instant panic. Shelby seemed perfect, and after a week of talking, I was hooked. So, when she suggested we meet in person, I pushed my fear aside and said yes. It was just one irrational phobia after all. What could possibly go wrong? On our first date, Shelby brought along a companion. A Madagascar hissing cockroach that she introduced with a gentle smile. She stroked its shiny black-brown shell as though it were a kitten.
"This is Manny,"
she said, extending the roach towards me. I smiled, swallowing my surprise. A roach as a pet felt a little unconventional, but I couldn't deny her passion. She was different, unique, and I was intrigued.
"I like roaches because when they crawl on my arms, they tickle me.
She murmured, running her fingers down Manny's back.
And when I hold them, they make me feel happy."
Her smile widened and she tilted her head toward me.
"Want to try holding him? You might find it addictive."
I tried not to let my discomfort show. Shelby was special, and if she found joy in these creatures, who was I to judge? Tentatively, I held out my hand. But before I could muster the courage, she retracted Manny with a knowing chuckle.
"Maybe later,"
she teased, her eyes sparkling. The evening flowed, and before I knew it, she was inviting me to her home. She said it was close by and, well, the night was young. I was curious, a little smitten, and before I could talk myself out of it, I agreed. Shelby's house was small and tucked away down a narrow, dark street. I followed her in, and the moment we stepped inside, I noticed something peculiar. At first, I couldn't tell what it was, but then I saw movement, a large shadow shifting near the floor. I blinked, thinking I must have imagined it.
"Don't worry,"
Shelby whispered, her voice soft and calm.
"They're just a little excited. They've been waiting to meet you."
As my eyes adjusted, I saw them. Cockroaches. Massive cockroaches, each nearly 3 feet tall, skittering across the floor. Some even stood on their hind legs, chittering in a way that sounded almost like laughter. Shelby walked forward and petted one of them, like it was her pet dog. It shuddered under her touch, its body quivering in what looked disturbingly like affection.
"Say hello to my family,"
she said, looking over her shoulder at me, her eyes gleaming. "Family?" I stammered, inching back as one of the cockroaches leaned toward me, its antennae twitching. The sight of its segmented body, its cold, gleaming eyes, sent a chill down my spine. I fought the urge to flee. Shelby reached out, taking my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong.
"Come on, they're friendly,"
she said, her tone soothing yet oddly commanding. She guided me into her bedroom, where the scene only grew more grotesque. Her bed was covered in them, hundreds of cockroaches of all sizes, crawling over each other in a sea of writhing bodies. With a contented sigh, Shelby lay down on the bed, letting them swarm over her, their legs and antennae moving in a strange rhythm as if massaging her. She looked at me with a smile of pure satisfaction, patting the bed beside her.
"Lie down with me,"
she urged.
"You'll feel them relax you. It's like a massage."
I wanted to leave. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run. But her eyes held me captive, and something about her confidence, her sheer conviction, made me feel almost compelled to stay. Trembling, I lowered myself onto the bed, and the instant I touched it, the cockroaches began crawling up my arms and legs, their tiny legs prickling my skin. I clenched my jaw, trying to hold still. Shelby took my hand, her touch warm and reassuring.
Just relax.
She whispered. I took a shaky breath, attempting to let go of my revulsion, but just then, a cockroach launched itself from her shoulder, straight at my face. When I came to, I was no longer lying down. My arms were stretched above my head, bound tightly to the wall, my feet dangling off the floor. I tried to scream, but a sticky substance covered my mouth, muting my voice. Shelby stood across from me, clapping her hands in delight.
Oh, you're awake! Welcome to Shelby's amazing cockroach show.
My mind reeled as she put the helmet into the roaches, then grinned like a showman ready to begin an act.
For our first trick,
She announced.
we're going to launch Manny here through a hoop of fire, right onto our star. Ron!
No! I tried to scream, but it came out as a muffled grunt. I watched in horror as she placed Manny, the giant cockroach, into the cannon, lit a small flame in front of it, and with a loud boom, Manny shot through the air, passing through the ring of fire and landing on my face. Its legs scratched my skin as it clung to me, its cold, slimy body pressing against me. Shelby laughed, a wild, gleeful sound.
Let's see how many more we can fit.
One by one, she loaded cockroach after cockroach into the cannon, firing them at me with sadistic glee. They stuck to me, their bodies writhing and squirming, covering me from head to toe in a living, churning mass of shells and legs. I felt something sharp, a bite, followed by another. A strange warmth began spreading through me, a sickening, feverish heat that made my skin crawl even beneath the roaches. My vision blurred as Shelby's laughter filled the room, and a voice echoed in my head, repeating her words from earlier.
Welcome to my family.
I can't remember how many times I've had this dream, but the fear and helplessness still make my heart ache. That's right, I'm terrified, absolutely haunted by spiders. As a child, I lived on my dad's insect farm, surrounded by spiders. The fear nearly gave me a fatal heart attack, leading my parents to divorce. Now, I live with my mum. My graduation is soon, but Dad didn't reply to my invitation. His last email, 2 weeks ago, proudly announced his success with mutant spider research. I have a bad feeling something went wrong with my dad's research. I've decided to go to his farm and make sure he's safe. It's been almost 10 years since I last set foot in this house. The house was pitch dark, damp, and eerily silent, with only my voice echoing as I cautiously called out, "Dad!" There was just one place left to check. Taking a deep breath, I tried to suppress my fear and turn the doorknob. Suddenly, a swarm of black spiders scurried out from behind the door. My body froze, trembling as I collapsed to the floor. At that moment, someone stepped out of the basement. It was my dad, George, the biologist. silently blowing a strange flute that sent the spiders retreating into the basement. Dad helped me up, his frail hand pale with black veins and dark, sharp hairs like a spider's bristles. Something was definitely wrong with him.
Why are you here, Jax?
I handed him the invitation card. He took it without a word, his cold demeanor cutting deep. Then I noticed something stuck on his eye. Instinctively, I reached out to remove it. It was a strand of spider silk, not something accidentally caught in his eye, but something coming from inside it. Dad jerked back, clearly annoyed by my actions, and rubbed his eye. The strand of silk disappeared without a trace. Dad, my car broke down. Can I stay here for the night?
Fine. But stay in your room. Don't wander around.
Seeing Dad's odd behavior, I knew something was wrong, likely because of the spiders. I made an excuse to stay and find out. As a meticulous researcher, I figured Dad would have recorded his entire experiment. I was right. Taking a deep breath, I opened the first folder. Skipping the confusing reports, I clicked on the first video, and it terrified me. The clip showed a female spider carrying an enormous egg sac. The spider screamed in pain, like a woman about to give birth. But spiders lay eggs, don't they? My suspicions were quickly confirmed. I watched as a massive baby spider broke out of the egg, dragging its mother's insides with it. The hungry spider rushed to its first meal, while the mother lay weak, helpless, and still as her young devoured her. It was so cold-blooded, so cruel. It was more disgusting than any spider or monster I had ever imagined. It took me a moment to regain my composure. I opened the final video, but what I saw was even worse. I was sure this spider was no longer a normal creature. Thinking about how this mutated spider had been born, I feared for my dad. What would happen when those eggs hatched? Suddenly, my dad appeared in front of me, his face furious.
Jax! What are you doing here?
I forced down my fear and rushed to tear off his shirt, hoping what I had seen was just a scene from a sci-fi movie. But I was wrong. These spiders were more dangerous than I had imagined. Each egg was stuck to my dad's skin, with a tiny tentacle piercing his spine. They were living and growing off his spinal fluid. The fear in my chest grew stronger, and I felt dizzy, my hands and legs trembling uncontrollably. Looking up at my dad, I noticed his eyes were slowly turning into those of a spider. I heard him gasp and scream at me.
Run! Get out of here!
He still had his mind. He still cared for me. I had to save him, telling myself that. I grabbed a ruler from the desk and rushed toward him. I shoved him to the ground, using all my strength to crush the eggs on his back. One by one, they cracked open and the baby spiders fell, filling the air with the scent of blood and a foul odor. Suddenly, my dad erupted with strength. He shoved me off, screaming,
Don't hurt my children!
"You've lost it, Dad! I'm your son! I'll save you from these monsters!" I yelled, only to realize, in shock, that the man in front of me was no longer the dad I knew. He had fully transformed into a monster. He shielded the baby spiders like a true mother spider, glaring at me as though I were an enemy trying to harm his offspring. The look in his eyes caused me pain and despair. What could I do to save him? But it was too late. The monster, now enormous and with all the terrifying traits of a spider, stood before me. My body froze, even breathing felt difficult, and my heart began to ache again. My dad's agonizing scream jolted me back. I turned to see the newborn spiders, driven by instinct, making him their first meal. Survival instinct drove me to run. I tried to drag my dad with me, but it was already too late.
Just leave it at the door. I want to sanitize this entire house. Hurry up.
This mattress still looks brand new. I really hit the jackpot today. Tonight, I'll finally sleep on a warm, comfy bed. This is my home. It's everything I have. As someone uneducated with no place to rely on, I've struggled to survive alone in this suffocating city. I had to learn to save as much as possible, just to build up a little bit of capital so I wouldn't end up wandering the streets. After a long, exhausting day of work, I quickly finished my simple dinner and happily fell asleep on my new mattress. That night, I heard a rustling sound beneath the mattress, but thought it was just the fabric rubbing together. I felt like something was crawling on me, but I convinced myself it was just because I wasn't used to the bed yet. The next morning, I woke up with my body covered in red welts, itching so badly it drove me crazy. That's when I realized there might really be something wrong with the mattress I brought home. I quickly flipped it over. What I saw made my skin crawl. Underneath the mattress were hundreds of bedbugs, wriggling and crawling all over. Terrified, I let go of the mattress immediately. I looked up the cost of bedbug treatments online, but the prices were outrageous. $900 for one cleaning session? Are you kidding me? That's half a month's salary for me. I searched online for ways to get rid of bedbugs. I decided to start with the cheapest method, using baking soda. After finishing, I went out to work, hoping that tonight I'd finally be able to sleep peacefully. That evening, I returned home with a vacuum cleaner I had borrowed from a co-worker. I used it to vacuum up the dead bedbugs and the baking soda from the mattress. After fiddling around for a while, I finally felt like I could get a good night's sleep, but the itching didn't stop. I could feel something biting me, sucking my blood. It was the bedbugs. They were far more stubborn than I had imagined. I grabbed an iron and started pressing the mattress back and forth. The bugs, with their blood-filled bellies, popped with a crisp, crackling sound under the searing heat. Once there wasn't a single bedbug left in sight, I felt reassured enough to go to sleep again. But my peaceful sleep continued to be disrupted. I heard a rustling sound coming from inside my ear. Annoyed, I reached in to clean it out, and I pulled out an entire family of bedbugs. This was beyond what I could tolerate. Terrified, I jumped out of bed, and what I saw froze me in place. There were bedbugs everywhere, on the bed, on the walls, on the sofa, in the kitchen. My home had been completely overrun by bedbugs. Panicked, I ran out of the house. The next morning, I bought a cheap bottle of insect spray. It wasn't specifically for bedbugs, but they're insects too, right? No, judging by the state of my home, these bedbugs weren't ordinary anymore. They were a bloodthirsty swarm. Furious, I charged into battle against them, determined to reclaim my home. After being sprayed, the bugs seemed to go berserk and started attacking me. Panicking, I sprayed the insecticide on myself. The blisters on my hands flared up, red and painful, like needles piercing my skin. The bottle quickly ran out, but there were still far too many bugs. They climbed over the bodies of their fallen comrades, swarming toward me. A chill ran down my spine and goosebumps prickled my skin. Acting on instinct, I grabbed a lighter and waved it toward the swarm. The bugs, also reacting on instinct, scattered in fear of the fire. Triumphant, I thought to myself, if only I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have wasted money on insecticide. I could have just used fire to drive them out of my house. But my victory was short-lived. A horrible accident happened. The fire from the lighter accidentally caught the insect spray bottle. As I panicked, trying to put out the flames, A searing pain erupted from the blisters on my hands. Horrified, I looked down at my hands. From the blisters, bedbug larvae wriggled out, crawling all over my skin. Terrified, I tried to shake them off, forgetting I was holding the lighter. The fire caught on my clothes and the insecticide I had sprayed on myself, turning me into a living torch.
Recently, a rare fire incident caused by using fire to exterminate bedbugs occurred in a small alley on Triple X Street. The fire left the homeowner severely injured and completely destroyed the house. Even more concerning is that a massive population of bedbugs from the house has dispersed throughout the alley and appears to be increasing rapidly.
I was 180 kilograms of disappointment. At least that's how I felt every time I caught my reflection in the gym's mirror. Every step, every bead of sweat was fueled by one single thought. Rose. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, her laughter ringing across the gym like music. I couldn't stay in the shadows anymore. If she wanted someone strong and fit, that's what I had to become. But weeks of torture on the treadmill and weights yielded almost nothing. The scale barely moved, and Rose didn't even notice me. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but notice how some of the most sculpted guys in the gym occasionally collapsed during their workouts. They'd be taken to the locker room pale and shaky, but always came back the next day looking stronger than ever. It made no sense. Frustrated, I finally complained to my trainer. "It's pointless," I grumbled, and decided to let everything go. "I've tried everything. I'll never look like them." He gave me a sly smile and leaned in, lowering his voice.
"You're right. Workouts alone won't cut it. But I've got something special for guys like you."
From his locker, he retrieved a small black jar read, "Fastest weight loss protein."
"This,"
he said, tapping it with his finger.
"is the shortcut, a secret formula. It's 100% safe and guarantees fast results."
I hesitated, staring at the jar. "What's in it?"
"Trust me, Bulk. You'll thank me later."
Desperation won over logic, and that night, I took my first scoop of the black protein. It tasted bitter and earthy, but I gulped it down, chasing it with water. The effects were immediate. Within days, my body began to transform. My gut shrank, my arms swelled with muscle, and my face, once round and bloated, gained sharp, chiseled features. Even my digestion improved. For the first time in my life, I felt confident. Rose even smiled at me one afternoon, and I swear my heart nearly stopped. But then, strange things began to happen. One morning, I noticed an itch in my throat, a constant tickling that wouldn't go away. My skin taut over my new muscles, sometimes felt like it was crawling, as though something moved beneath the surface. And then, there was the jar. I'd been going through it faster than I thought, and as I scooped out the last serving, something caught my eye. Inside the powder, something squirmed. My stomach turned as I fished it out. A tiny black leech, wriggling between my fingers. I dropped it, horrified, and stared at the jar in disbelief. What had I been drinking? At the hospital, the truth came out. The doctor showed me the scans of my body, his face pale. My muscles weren't muscles. They were writhing, tangled masses of leeches. These creatures had burrowed inside me, feeding on my fat and growing, giving the illusion of strength. I confronted the trainer the next day, holding the jar in trembling hands. He didn't flinch.
Relax. They're harmless. They only feed on excess. When you're ready, there's a pill to flush them out. Isn't this what you wanted? You're strong, healthy, and Rose notices you now, doesn't she?
His words twisted in my mind. He wasn't wrong. For the first time, I had what I'd always wanted. So I ignored the itch in my throat, the occasional stinging under my skin. I kept drinking the protein and enjoying my newfound body. Until the morning I couldn't breathe. It started as a scratchy feeling, but quickly turned into suffocation. My vision blurred as I gagged, clawing at my throat. Something inside was moving, writhing its way up. I stumbled into the gym, collapsing at the trainer's feet. "Help me!" I choked out, blood spilling from my mouth. He reacted immediately, forcing me onto the floor and yanking my jaw open. His hand disappeared into my throat, and I felt the unbearable tugging of something alive being pulled out. I screamed as the creature fought back, scraping against the walls of my throat. Finally, with a wet, sickening pop, it came free. The leech was massive, writhing and dripping with blood. The trainer tossed it aside, but the damage was done. I lay on the floor, gasping, my body trembling. When I finally mustered the strength to sit up, I caught my reflection in the gym mirror. The man staring back was unrecognizable. My skin hung loose over my skeleton, my eyes sunken, my once impressive frame reduced to a hollow shell. The trainer crouched beside me, smirking.
Well, Bulk,
He said, clapping a hand on my shoulder.
you've finally hit your goal weight. Congratulations.
It began like any other morning. I laced up my running shoes and took my usual route through the forest. The crisp air, the sound of leaves crunching beneath my feet. This was my sanctuary. Until today, I nearly stepped on it. A toad sitting eerily still in the middle of the path. I stopped just in time, crouching to get a closer look. Its back was studded with strange golden orbs. At first, I thought they were boils, swollen and ready to burst. Injury, perhaps? But no, the orbs seemed too deliberate, too alive. As I leaned in, the orbs began to sink, like marbles disappearing into the toad's flesh. The holes, deep, dark, and unnervingly round, began to expand. And then, from those grotesque pits, something emerged. I watched in horror as the sacs began to split, revealing grotesque limbs that unfurled with unnatural speed. Tadpoles? No, something worse, birthed directly from the toad's flesh. One of the creatures, slimy and malformed, launched itself onto my arm. I screamed, swatting at the tiny monster, but more of them sprang forth, latching onto my face, my neck. Their tiny, clawed limbs clung desperately to my skin. I could feel the cold, wet slime spreading as I tried to shake them off, but their grip was unyielding. My breaths came in panicked gasps as I clawed at my own skin. Finally, I managed to dislodge them, flinging their writhing bodies into the underbrush. Gasping and trembling, I stumbled home, my arms slick with their mucus. Red welts began to bloom across my skin. In the bathroom, I scrubbed myself raw. The hot water only intensified the burning sensation. I poured soap over every inch of my body, determined to erase the feeling of those things crawling on me. But no matter how much I scrubbed, the sensation lingered. My mind wouldn't stop replaying the scene. Those holes, those sacs, the vile creatures emerging from the depths. When I glanced at the bathroom sink, its drain, a simple circular opening, seemed to pulse. The tiles on the floor with their neat round patterns became a maze of voids. Every pore on my body seemed magnified. Even the tiny pores on my own skin seemed to gape at me, like miniature mouths ready to spew more horrors. I couldn't escape the imagery. Exhausted and desperate, I crawled into bed. I needed sleep, a reprieve from the madness clawing at my sanity. I forced myself to close my eyes and let the world fade away. But when I opened them again, it was there. I bolted upright, heart pounding, but the toad remained, unfazed by my panic. The toad stared at me with its unblinking eyes. Its presence was oppressive, its weight suffocating. My hands. It was my hands that made me freeze. They were slick, their skin darker, shinier. The dim light in my room distorted everything, but even in the shadows, I could see the unnatural sheen. "What did you do to me?" I shouted, my voice breaking. The toad spoke. Its voice was guttural, low, reverberating in my skull.
"I kissed you. You are my mate now. You have to give birth for me."
I scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping in my haste. The mirror on the wall caught my eye, and I turned toward it. What I saw brought bile to my throat. My reflection was no longer human. My skin, now a sickly green-brown, was covered in a slick, mucus-like film. My hands were grotesquely webbed, my eyes bulging slightly from my skull. But worst of all was my back. Through the reflection, I saw golden orbs, the same orbs that adorned the toad, sprouting from my flesh. They pulsed, they quivered. Then, with a sickening pop, the orbs burst open, revealing the same deep holes. My body spasmed as tiny creatures, part human, part toad, began to emerge. Their grotesque forms wriggled free, flopping onto the floor. They called me mother. Dozens of them, no, hundreds, crawled out of me, each more hideous than the last. Their voices, a cacophony of screeches and croaks, filled the room. They climbed onto the bed, the walls, and eventually onto me. Their touch burned, their tiny claws sinking into my flesh. I couldn't scream. My throat was raw, my body overwhelmed. They swarmed me, their weight pressing me down. And as they chanted their grotesque refrain, I felt myself sinking, consumed by their slimy, writhing bodies. Darkness swallowed me. I woke to the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. My skin was raw, covered in red, itchy welts. A doctor stood over me, clipboard in hand.
"You've had an allergic reaction."
He explained, his tone clinical.
"Probably from contact with a toad. You're lucky it wasn't worse."
Relief flooded through me. It was just a reaction, a nightmare fueled by fever and paranoia. But as I sat up, something caught my eye. Tiny, round holes had begun to form on my arm, and for a moment, I swore I heard a faint croak.